I am going to get really close to this microphone so you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Good. Thank you for that truly warm welcome. And it was wonderful as we drove up to the school today, the great hospitality that was shown by the students here at Timpview High School. Thank you. Give yourselves a big round of applause for the job. And I'd like another applause for the weather. Although I had nothing to do with it. It's beautiful. I'm truly honored to join with you today as we remember our men and women in uniform, those who have served our country from its very beginning, men and women who over the years and through countless battles and struggles on and off the battlefield have preserved the freedoms we enjoy every day. You might ask, how can we best honor these brave men and women this day? Let me take you for just a few minutes to the front lines in Afghanistan, 7,271 miles from Salt Lake City. U.S. Special Forces are on the ground, joined with Afghan soldiers to fight off the Taliban and try to restore peace to a strategic valley somewhere near the Pakistan border. Frontline, a public television program, conducted interviews with the American soldiers. And I thought this particular part of the interview might set the stage for my remarks here today. The reporter is interviewing a Staff Sergeant medic. We'll call him Staff Sergeant Jason. You're the medic on the team. Did you have any idea what kind of medical situation you might face? How are you prepared to deal with what might come? Well, medically, the intelligence was probably worse than anything else because it usually takes a back burner. So I really didn't know what the situation would be like. Just from what I knew media-wise of Afghanistan, I anticipated basically no medical care, no supplies, or trained personnel being available. Everything we brought was minimal, but I tried to bring things for every contingency, which was used up pretty quickly once we got on the ground and started moving. Well, can you talk about some of the experiences you encountered in those early days, treating some of the Afghans? What happened? I think it was more than a few days before we started having casualties, and they were all Afghani casualties, no Americans at that point. We initially got one casualty and we treated him. It was an amputation of his leg, which in and of itself was something that I thought I would never wind up doing. We're trained to do it, but as you go through training, you think, how could anything ever be so bad that I would amputate a leg on some dirt somewhere in who knows where? Then to do it in the middle of the night with a headlamp on you and your weapons guy, I think that's who was assisting me, is pretty phenomenal. I think once that casualty lived and the word got out that there are some guys on the ground here that can do something when you're injured by a landmine or a gunshot, it was like the floodgates were open after that. We were open for business. It seemed like every time I tried to sleep, somebody pulled up with some degree of injury and they wanted it taken care of now. Where did that amputation take place? What was the setting? The setting for the first procedure we did was basically what you'd call a courtyard, which was also the cooking area and the assembly area for the troops, a sleeping area for some. Even some animals ran around there from time to time, so it was definitely not a hospital condition. It was the definition of austere. We did it right, but it was on the ground, basically hard-packed mud. We tried to lay a blanket down and keep it as clean as possible. I think we did our best to preserve a sterile environment. Well, how are you dealing with the casualties at the same time you're moving so quickly? Dealing with casualties as we're on the move much quicker than we expected to be was actually a slight problem. Mainly for them, so to speak, because there were at times I was able to complete procedures, but not really up to the point where you didn't want to not see somebody again. You finish an amputation, or a chest tube, or a gunshot wound. You really don't know who the next medical personnel or doctor would be that's going to see that patient. So you kind of have that thing in the back of your mind. You hope that someone picked it up where you left off. You just have to know that you did what you could at the time. It was better than no treatment at all. Maybe there was a qualified person. Maybe what you did was just enough. But you did what you did so the person could keep going and live. There are stories like this by the thousands, from all wars, from all generations. This story is from your generation, you students here at Timpview High. Many of you here today have friends or family members who have experienced firsthand the feelings and emotions associated with the horror, the confusion, and the cost of war. I can't tell you how many wars have been fought since the beginning of time, but there have been plenty. I can tell you that the human cost of the wars that were fought with American involvement since 1775, covering the last 238 years of history, and the numbers are staggering. According to the Department of Defense and Veteran Affairs, from the American Revolution to the present day, 660,000 approximately American men and women have lost their lives in combat. Nearly 1.5 million Americans were wounded, many of these wounded soldiers suffering until their death, and some suffering through the rest of their lives. And many continue to suffer to this day, with debilitating injuries, either physical or mental. The greatest human toll, however, of all wars remains the loss of civilian lives. People just like you, trying to live their lives in peace. The numbers are staggering, climbing into the millions. So some of you might ask the question, should these wars have been fought? What are we doing? And if you really want to find the answers, I challenge you to read about the history of our world, and you will learn a great deal. The answer isn't a yes or no, but there are lessons to be learned from the past. You are the leaders of tomorrow, and your judgment needs to be clear. And for that to happen, you will need to know the history. Listen to the veterans tell their stories. They're important stories to know. And as you learn about the history, you may be able to unlock the solutions of the future. As we focus on our veterans today, let us think about these words from John Fitzgerald Kennedy, our 35th president, who was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, 50 years ago this month. President Kennedy said, speaking of honoring our veterans, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. As we ponder those words, the word that stands out is live. As President Abraham Lincoln, as you heard earlier, our 16th president, gave his great speech at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania on November 19, 1863, a speech that is now woven into the fabric of America. He said as he stood on the battlefield, the final resting place for those who gave their lives, quote, and it's worth hearing twice in one day, "It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take the increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion." Two great presidents, 100 years apart, giving us nearly the same message, and that message is so simple, and yet if needed is the greatest honor we could bestow on our veterans. Let us not just utter the words, "We honor you this day," but let us live with an increased devotion to the cause of freedom. Let us live with a renewed spirit of understanding and love for our friends and neighbors. Reach out to them, get to know them, find ways to help them when they are in need. Let us remove the barriers we so often put up ourselves and live in our own neighborhoods, as our Pledge of Allegiance reminds us, with liberty and justice for all. Let us live waving the banner of honesty. Be true to your word. Never back away from the truth. The only way to live in peace is to be completely honest with each other, not only in the words we say, but in the deeds we do. Live by opening your heart to those in need. Help feed the hungry and clothe the poor. Share what we have appropriately with the less fortunate by showing them the way to a better life. Visit the sick and comfort those who have lost their way in the world. These are the ways to help others as you travel the road of life. And if you are not just thinking of yourself, but of the sacrifice of men and women over the centuries that gave you that freedom to do so, you will recognize those opportunities. Let us live. Become a contributing citizen of your community by doing well in school or at your job. Reach for the impossible in all that you do. And students, if you want to help the environment, study science and maybe discover better ways to live in harmony with our planet. Study medicine, and maybe you'll be the next person to discover something like penicillin. Study math and physics. We need more engineers to build better modes of transportation, not only on our planet, but into space as well. Let us live by learning more about music and the arts, the universal language that can bring a tear to the eyes or a smile to the faces of people who don't even speak the same language. Let us live. Do everything you can to give back. Make our neighborhoods, communities, and our country strong, thus making the world a better place to live. Let us live life to the fullest. The Declaration of Independence bestows that right on all of us. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Remember Staff Sergeant Jason? There are millions of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have been in similar situations, that in the middle of a battle with the mud, the stench of war, the tears for the loss of a comrade in battle, and yes, the victories, whether great or small. I pray that those experiences will end someday. But because the world is still plagued by people who are not good citizens, we must be even more vigilant and remember Jason's words. After he treated the wounded and fought the battle, he hoped that someone would pick it up where he left off. You and me, we are that someone. Take their victory, heal the wounds, be good citizens of the United States of America. Each of us can do this. There will be beautiful choirs and bands and programs such as this amazing program today. All great ways to honor our veterans. But the greatest way we can honor them is to take the freedom that they have so nobly fought for and use it to live and let freedom ring. Thank you.